Before you listen to what is on this video, read John 9:12 through 25. John 2, excuse me, John 2 is chapter 9. John 2:12 through 25, and then come back to this. Okay. So let's talk about these verses. We're on page 65 of your book. What do you think was Jesus' purpose in going to Jerusalem? Yes. Yeah, it was Passover. So he was going to celebrate the Passover. And it was required that adult Jewish males attend, unless they had able-bodied males, unless they couldn't attend it, would go to Jerusalem for the Passover. It was actually required for all of the feasts. So he was going there with his mother and his brothers to celebrate the Passover. Do you think he wanted to shake up the status quo or merely celebrate the feast? Status quo means like the way things are, like things are calm. Shake that up. Yeah. Both. Possibly both. Definitely he wanted, it says, right, that he was celebrating the Passover with his mother and his brothers. So definitely he wanted to go do that. And I don't know what he knew and didn't know, but if he certainly knew what was in men's hearts. And this was not the first time that there were people selling things. It became a practice over a number of years. So that practice was known to Jesus. So maybe he came saying, you know what? I don't want the temple being used this way anymore. I'm going to do something about it. We can't know for sure. The answer here says the answer is weird. And then, the next question says this. People who sold animals for sacrifice around the temple provided a valuable service because it was difficult for pilgrims to bring animals with them. So this is true. It was much easier for them to buy the lamb or the goat or whatever it was once they got there. The money changers were the same thing. You had to pay the temple tax with a certain kind of coinage, and people coming from far away wouldn't have that coinage. So the money changers were able to give them the kind of coinage that would work. When we went to Zambia, when our church, and they still do take trips to Zambia. I've been a while. One of the years, I think the first time we went, we took American money, and we sent the money by wire, and when we got there, it wasn't there. So the next year, we sent the money by wire, but we also took that same amount in cash in case we didn't get the money. And we actually did get the money. We had double the money. I don't have time to tell a story about that. So we're traveling back from Serengeti, which is a rural town, to Lusaka, which is the capital city, with a whole lot of money on us, which isn't everything. And the night before, the pastor who leads the church in Lusaka said to him, if anyone tries to extort money from you, tell them that you do not have it. And our pastor said, I can't do that. And he said, yeah, and the pastor said, yes, you can, because in Zambia, if the money is earmarked for something, then it is already taken. You don't have it because it's not yours, it belongs to someone else. And our pastor kept saying, no, I have this money, I can't do that. And Jonathan just kept coming back and saying, no, in our country, whoever stops you, be a Zambian, it is as though you don't. So sure enough, the most dangerous checkpoint that we go through, because it's just a mile away from the Democratic Republic of Congo, we were stopped. And they pulled our pastor out and took him into a tent. And they were telling him, you need to give us all your money. And sure enough, he said, I don't have that. And they searched him, and he was in there for a very long time. They ended up letting him go and not finding out about the money. But that service of exchanging money is very important. When we would go with American dollars and we would exchange them for kwacha. And that's easy to do in Zambia. It's not easy to do in the United States. You're not going to find a bank that has Zambian kwacha. In fact, I tried to exchange American dollars for Swiss francs. There's not a bank or a entity in Omaha that exchanges Swiss francs. So we had to wait until we got there to exchange for Swiss francs. So they were doing a service. They were doing a service that was important, and I don't think it was that service that was the problem. But we'll talk about that as we go. People who would who sold animals for sacrifice around the temple provided a valuable service for the reasons we already talked about. So Jesus, why do you think then that Jesus got so angry at what was taking place? Yes. Yeah. It's one thing to exchange those things in the streets of Jerusalem or in the streets of Omaha, but it's another thing to do that kind of thing in a sanctuary, and in particular for the Jews in the place where God dwelt. And so the fact that this was going on and the absence of genuine worship, like it was only a house of trade. There was no worship going on in God's house. Verse 22 says that the disciples believed the scripture after Jesus' resurrection, and they remembered what he had said. Does this mean they didn't believe him before, as in his prophecy? Yes. You already know this. I mean, if you meet a new friend or a new person comes to the school and you befriend that person, and you start getting to know that person. Do you know everything about that person? No. But as you get to know someone, you get to know them better. My husband and I have gone on several what they're called family life um, marriage conferences, and the first one we went to, we've been married 6 months, and people were all like, "All right, going to a marriage conference, you're only married 6 months," and in our minds, it was a way for us to better our marriage, right? And we've been to about 5 of them. I don't remember how far into our marriage this was, but we were to do this conversation with each other. And one of the questions was, what's something you wish you would have known about your spouse before you got married? And I'm not going to tell you what we said, but each of us had something. I wish now they weren't deal breakers, and we're fine. Don't worry about us. But both of us had something like, I wish I would have known this about you before we got married. But people tend to put their best foot forward and tend to show the best part of them, and not the worst part of them. And so that's not true with Jesus. He didn't have that part. But their understanding of who he is, who he was, grew. And that's shown in the Mount of Transfiguration, right? Where they're freaking out when they see him. I'm in Revelation right now in the Bible, and when the Lamb shows up, when Jesus shows up in heaven, this is I don't know. I think it's fine. Everybody falls down on their faces. Everybody just boom down on their faces because they see Jesus for all. The disciples didn't see that on this side, but he revealed himself as they were amazed by him, and they learned about him more and more and more as they walked with him, just like you do with your friends. You learn more and more about that. Some of it good, some of it bad. With Jesus, it was all good, although sometimes scary. The next question is faith in God and His Word a point in time or a progression of growth, or is it both? You going to add to that, Herman? Yeah, just as the disciples grew to know Jesus better, we grow to know Jesus better. My father never knew a time when he didn't know Jesus or he didn't love Jesus. He just always did. Now, obviously, there was a point at which he believed in Jesus. It was just he was so young, he really couldn't remember. But then he grew in that, and I remember being in middle school, and both of my parents had kind of a reawakening of their faith, and were just on fire for the rest of their lives. But they knew Jesus before that. It's just their faith grew. And I can testify as one who's walked with Jesus for more than 40 years. I can testify that my faith has grown. My faith has probably grown more in the last 10 years I've been here at Cornerstone than in any other point of my walk with Jesus. And part of that is teaching the Bible, and part of that is just who I'm around every day, all day, every day, with my colleagues and my students. So yeah, you're very right, but it's both. And then the curriculum says the Bible teaches that it is both. So pay attention to this development in your lives as disciples of Christ. See how you are growing, and you're not going to see growth from day to day necessarily, but if you look back, if you're a follower of Christ, if you look back a year or 2 or 3, you should see growth. And if there's not, that can be problematic. I'm going to do a little visual. And I'll be doing this again at some point in your next 3 years. I need a volunteer. Come on up here, Toby. I promise it's not hard. Hopefully not embarrassing. So you're going to stand here and you're going to go that way. Just go through the doorway. I'm following Toby. Yeah, I'm going where he goes. Okay, go up there. Thank you, Toby. I appreciate that. Here's the thing, and this is duh, but it's also profound. You cannot follow someone you're moving on. You cannot follow someone. To follow someone, you have to walk the same direction. And so if you are not following Jesus, you are not walking where he walks, what he does, you're not following. If you are moving away from God, if you are getting farther away from God, not closer. You are not farther. Because you can't follow someone or even just standing still. The life of faith is progressive. The life of faith is a growth in that faith. And if your faith is stagnant or dead, that's not active faith. That's not growing. And I think that this is what happened with the disciples. They went where he went and did what he did and turned the world up. That we could do the same. So next question is, although verse 23 teaches that many believed in his name, verse 24 tells us that Jesus perceived that they were not trustworthy. What do you think Jesus saw in their hearts that caused his skepticism? Right? I thought you were.
Yeah, they would.
That they would tell Pilate to crucify him, the people. Yeah, the people did do that. Yeah. And Jesus knew they would. Yeah, but yeah, their doubts, their intentions, their motivations, and Jesus knows all of that, and he knew even then who truly believed, as he knows now, who truly and genuinely believed that he was the Son of God, and the ones that were just like, oh, cool, look what this guy's doing. What is he going to do next? Those that were just there for the free show. And I think this happens today. That there are people who truly, and don't have to be none of us can be perfect. But if you have a sincere desire to become like Jesus, you mess up, I mess up, everybody messes up. But a serious desire to be Jesus, if you're just playing around to see what happens next, or what cool thing you can get from God, that's not walking with Jesus. So yeah, some recognized and genuine who he was, and genuinely believed, but some just wanted to see the miracles. And Jesus knew who was who. What do you think Jesus knew, quote, was in a man? Yes. Sin. Sin nature. Lies and deceit. Fickleness. Unbelief. He knows. What's in us just as okay, so that's it for today. You can spend the rest of the time chatting.